Hey, good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody, depending on where you are. We are here with Tracy Beecher and Angela Rohlhoff, Middletown Prairie Elementary, and we are going to be focusing on TFI 1.5, establishing buy-in for shared space acknowledgement systems. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy and team to teach us all about everything they know.
All right. Well, welcome to TFI 1.5. I'm Tracy Beecher. I'm the assistant principal of Middletown Prairie Elementary. With me is Angela Roloff, one of our kindergarten teachers, and then Jeremy Truex just popped in. She is one of our encore teachers here at Middletown Prairie. If you can cue the next slide. This slide here just shares some background information about our school. We're a um, district right outside Champaign-Urbana, like near the University of Illinois. So we have a growing population that's really changing in its diversity linguistically and culturally. But you can see here some of our highlights of our summative designation and some of the highlights of our student diversity. All right, on to the next, please. Okay, and here is just the outline of the school acknowledgement system TFI 1.5. Where we're really sitting right now, we've said is kind of at like a 3.3 is where we've kind of rated ourselves. After going through the former TFI and looking at the new one just a few weeks ago, we walked through some of where we have been, where we're going, and what's kind of presently working for us. So if you hop to the next slide, we can show you that piece. Okay, so we started out as two different elementary schools combining into one. Several years ago, we were Sangamon Elementary and then Middletown Elementary. They closed Sangamon and built us what we have, a very beautiful building here. But that was the merging of two staffs with really two completely different ideals on behavior management, um, meshing together. Initially, a lot of our student acknowledgement was centered around student and principal interaction. And here we have over 800 students. So principal to student interaction can be a difficult way to manage all your systems daily with how many kids we have here in the combined space. Um, Once we all came together, there was kind of a push for one set way and then another set way to come together. And that leaned into kind of having that importance of a broader school involvement piece. Strong buy-in really emerged for us when we started thinking in terms of having a universal language and universal expectations in shared spaces. So that's really where PBIS started for us was how do we acknowledge the great things that our kids are doing and coach those through new skills that they might need by acknowledging the good behaviors. So we started out in our cafeterias, in our bathrooms, in our hallways mostly, also centered around like car duties, like morning drop off, afternoon pickup. And that all started with the cute little possum you see in the top corner. It's just a slip ticket that teachers and staff members pass out when they see somebody following one of our school expectations. All right, on to the next, please. Okay, what we're currently doing, we've over the past few years kind of really evolved those possums to be like growing the staff ownership over those pieces. So once we had everything set in those shared spaces, the kids were starting to love it, and the staff members were starting to see the real value in having that uniformity in language and in common expectations. Our encore team really built upon that because they see all of the students throughout the day or throughout the week. So they kind of brought in that reinforcement of expectations within their classrooms and started to spread that out into like our kindergarten, first, and pre-K rooms. Um, it was really started with the focus of expanding it across all instructional settings and where we saw the most buy-in was in Encore. So those teachers are using them as whole class pause. Like if the whole class is meeting those Bulldog expectations, they go with a fancy whole class paw back. And some students might receive a paw for their own best behavior within that space. Um, Growing the staff ownership really led to more differentiation within the pause too. It's been a stronger connection to start building where some of the pause are connected to maybe some of our classroom content. So you might see a paw that has a teacher dressed like a queen because right now kindergarten is focusing on royalty and CKLA. Or we have some funny paws in the cafeteria that are themed. You might see like a bulldog eating in a winter hat, or it might be even like a bus paw. We have all sorts of different things that have come to increase engagement between students and adults, and just to motivate them with something new. Um, I think some of the biggest things that we like to highlight is that, I mean, even our bus drivers are using them, our cafeteria staff are using them. We have a specific staff or substitute paw, which is up in the right corner for you guys to view. Um, we even have like student support staff using them. We have high school helpers that come into classrooms that have permission to use paws. Our custodians pass them out. And we have a few connections within the community where the paws are starting to transition out, like getting off the bus and they're showing their daycare provider the paw. Or we have a few local daycares that I've made a connection with where they're able to know that to look for that when they get off the bus, like, oh, they had a great time on the bus or they had a great time today at school, and bringing that language out within our community too. So next slide, please. Here's some pictures of how some of our classrooms are really building that classroom community piece. So you can see our kind of that bulldog in the picture is kind of our universal Middletown bulldog. Um, our district is the bulldogs all around, so every building kind of has their own cutesy version. This teacher has some of her own classroom like expectations there on the wall, but then you can see where she's collected all of the different paws from the different Encore teachers. You can see some of them are even like color coded, or they might look like a specific artist. And one of the rainbow ones on the side is something special that was earned in another space too. And then here's another teacher setup. Some teachers will do them on their doors or on the big walls within their classrooms. There should be one more cute picture. Yep. And then that one there is a second grade classroom where you can see the teacher has kind of made herself the highlight on the top there, focusing on those paws. And then below are all the ones that her class has collected. Some teachers take like the gotta catch 'em all type approach, like Pokemon Go. So they go through and keep track of which encores they've gotten them from and which designs. And then to highlight the picture on the side there with the student faces, that is sort of where some teachers are heading in terms of showing off particular student growth in different areas. So you'll see how that teacher has paws kind of around students' faces of ones that they've earned in particular spaces too. All right, and to talk through a little bit of what our future holds here for Pawsomes at Middletown Prairie, we wanted to highlight one of our teachers' tracking and acknowledgement system models. It's really Mrs. Truax's idea that kind of built on this like gotta catch 'em all type theme that like kindergarten and first and second grade are also using within their classrooms. We're really trying to work on like build staff capacity around consistent documentation practices. That's a big goal for our whole tier one team moving forward. We have done a lot of work this year on presenting our tier one effectiveness to our staff, and that gets put into our board reports for our school board as well, in terms of how many students are meeting those Bulldog expectations on a regular basis. And then just continuing to strengthen consistency really by finishing our written protocol. But if you move to the next slide, Mrs. Truex can talk through a little bit of how she is really honing in on the tracking piece and using the tier one curriculum in her classroom to really match what those paws look like in terms of even her art standards.
So I have, you can kind of see all these like the color coordinated. I have three grades. So I have K1, 2, then I have a mini Paul of each one. And I kind of approach it like collecting, it's a collection. And this is my second art collection. And the kids have been, I do artists that we've like learned about. So it kind of ties in my curriculum with what they're doing. And then it's kind like collecting and keeping track is really my way of remembering to give them, like hand them out. Because what I was finding was that I was continuously not really giving the classes that are always like doing meeting expectations. And I was kind of ignoring, not really ignoring them, but they weren't getting acknowledged. And the kids that struggled were getting acknowledged more. So I needed a reminder for myself to be like, okay, well, let's have the standards across the board. So I came up with this idea and it's worked out so well. And the kids are super pumped about it. They love seeing the connection of the artist. And then again, it's a reminder for me, oh yeah, we really need like this class. We're gonna, and sometimes it's just we're gonna work on carpet time today. And it doesn't have to like it's what works for that class, but it's acknowledging them as a whole on what they can do. And then this is just my way of tracking and their way of collecting. They don't see it as a tracking necessarily. They see it as they need to collect all the cards.
Mhm.
Um,
And that's where the buy-in piece really comes in, is they are looking toward the new
like
designs.
and they
They're
like go
looking.
back on the board and they're like, which one haven't we gotten yet? And it's pretty cool. My all my substitutes now know how to use it, like my regular ones. And I have special substitute paws that I have drawn for the subs in art that day too. But it really has turned into a great tool that kind of it kind of does its own thing. Like it does, like the kids sort of are taking ownership and they remind me to do it, and it's kind of just doing its own thing. It's been a super great and effective tool.
You pop to the next pictures, please. And then same thing there, you can see just a kind of a closer look on the check marks of who's received what, right?
Yep.
Mhm. All right, we'll pop to the next. Okay. Kind of talked through this a little bit already, but our kind of where we self-assess ourselves is like right in between that 3.3 is what I gave us. We're really like our strengths lie in the acknowledgements are meaningful to them, but we are not necessarily tying any sort of like token piece to it. It is the adult language and the adult connection that comes with passing that paw. That's very meaningful to them. And I think it's how we hold everybody accountable to stay in that strong foundation of school-wide expectations and shared language is having that buy-in on this student acknowledgement. Um, our biggest areas of focus and next steps are really just around making sure that we continue to differentiate those acknowledgements and ensure consistency across classrooms with using that implementation, which will come with our extended documentation piece and developing our tracking system for next year. And the next one should be our last slide. And this is just a summary if someone were to go back and watch through this video to see some suggestions of whether how to start right from the ground up or how you can get better at acknowledgements. I think the biggest piece that we would want to highlight under the orange is just that we spent a lot of time before we rolled out the pause as a team and a staff really talking about where the consistent language needed to be for acknowledgement. And that's really how we started the process. We also value teacher time a lot and try to keep it as simple as possible. So some staff members are loving to make their own pause and go crazy with the collect 'em all type theme. And others are really grateful to just receive a handful in their mailbox to pass out, already printed for them. So that's part of what our tier one team does. And we also implemented these paw print parking lots around the school where they're hanging a little high so students can't reach them, but you can just grab and go. You might see, anybody could see I've seen a custodian grab out of one, like somebody helped clean up something in the bathroom and he grabbed from a parking lot and said, "Thanks for your respectful behavior." Um, if you're trying to get better at already using acknowledgements, it's um, reflecting back on what is the shared space language and how do you continue to reiterate that, and then really taking the time to personalize it and communicate it to your staff. Um, we've seen the biggest change when we opened up that empowering piece to our staff members that are not necessarily teachers. It's become a huge piece of the community here at Middletown Prairie, and even parents will be like, oh, they got a paw for this, or the sub paws now in the cafeteria. I have to sign them on the back because the students want to take them home and make sure that their parents know that I saw it and that they got to use it. And it's just a slip of paper that has a cute bulldog on the front. So we had 6 kids today use them because we had subs all morning in kindergarten. So that empowerment piece and letting my lunchroom supervisors manage that for me with looking at the paws and moving them around has been a huge piece for our community here.
Oh, thank you, Tracy and team. Holy cow. What I love that you all are um, at its core, it's all about the relationship and it's all relational. So many times we see acknowledgement systems kind of go awry, but you've really anchored this in the true relationships and connection piece. I also love that you're allowing your staff to have agency over what it looks like and sounds like specific to their content area and where they are in the school community. And I kept picturing the ripple effect that you're having, and because it's kind of creating that momentum where it's not a small sector of the school, but it's really a community-wide effort. So thank you so much.
That's all our encore team. They are the ripple effect, I would say.
Yeah, I just kept picturing ripples in my head and how I just
Yep.
so that was brilliant. Thank you so much.